Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Steve, we've been doing this a long time. And did you know this is our 100th episode?
We can now go into syndication.
Actually, it's officially our 113th, but we did 13 that first spring when we were just playing around during COVID, and I don't count those because most of them were just you and me blabbering at each other. But once we sort of restarted in the fall of 2020, this is our 100th episode.
100 episodes.
And through those 99 plus episodes we've done before, we've talked about a lot of things around product management. We've talked a lot about skills that product managers need, challenges product management has, how we work with the departments. But we never talked about what I think is an important topic is product management superpowers. And now maybe every job, maybe every role has their own superpowers, but I thought it'd be a fun thing to delve into is what are the superpowers of product managers? I mean, part of me thinks this is a topic you might like because you like the sci-fi stuff.
Well, I do like sci-fi stuff. That is true. Yeah, I like the idea of, kind of a Marvel product manager of some kind, a superhero who can, identify market problems faster than a speeding bullet.
Yeah, I like that. I think he would have a gray beard and gray hair and a chiseled jaw. Oh, wait, it's Jason Vincelette.
No cape.
Dun, dun, dun.
No cape.
Never cape.
That was such a great line.
Like close.
So, yeah. So we're going to talk about this. Actually, one of the inspirations for this, when we did our AI's impact on product management, we delved into neurodiversity actually a little bit being a superpower and how a lot of product managers, whether they know it or not, probably have a little neurodiversity, whether it's the ability to multitask and do a whole bunch of things, whether it's the ability to go deep on something. But I wanted to broaden this and make sure we start talking about it. So on Monday, we put in the community, simple question. What are your superpowers, product management superpowers? And May, you said you always find yourself doing more product management when you don't even have the title. But the real answer is you're good at pinpointing the underlying systemic issues that create many symptoms. Talk me through your superpowers.
So the first one, it's kind of funny, when you have the title, you end up being expected to do all of the other stuff that product management ends up doing, so you don't actually get to do any product management. But when you don't have the title, because you're doing something else, and it's usually typically a generally more defined role, you end up doing that product management aspect, thinking about, is this the most important thing we could do? How do I prioritize my time? And so on and so forth. So I find it to be rather interesting that so many people resonated with that statement as well. So I just thought it would be an interesting thing to point out.
Yes.
And my second response was, it's when we talk about problems, right? You go and do a whole lot of user interviews, be it internal, external. People tell you about their problems, but they also usually say, and we fix this by doing blah, right? All we have to do is just this one thing. And then, so when you walk away from 10 interviews, you walk away with 10 different solutions. Okay, maybe 8, right? There might be some overlaps. But if you dive into the core of the problem and you dive a little deeper to see what is the trigger for that problem, generally speaking, it's 80% of those problems can be resolved by solving one core systemic problem. And it might simply just be person A is not talking to person B and they hold the keys, right? So it's if you take a bit of time and think about the underlying problems and say, yeah, this is a problem, but why is this a problem? I tend to be really good at that. And I don't know why, I don't know how, it just is.
is that a forest for a trees? Is that a connecting dots that other people can't? Where do you, I mean, talk to me about where you see that.
It is simply just, I guess, diving a little deeper, but also more, um, I feel like it's connecting patterns, right? Like it's
Yeah.
pattern recognition. And if you do it enough, you get a lot better at recognizing the patterns where person A is not talking to person B. And it's, people describe the problems, and if you have to understand the whole system before you can understand the systemic problems, right?
Yep.
So I take a lot of time to understand, well, partly because of my role as product operations, I take a lot of time understanding the whole structure, all the connecting pieces, where the information flows, where the information ends. And when you put in that amount of work to understand the system, then it's easier to identify where the systemic blockers are.
It's interesting because I've at times talked with people, and sort of to you're talking about this pattern recognition stuff. It's almost like Neo in the Matrix, right? Where everything starts slowing down and he can see the numbers, and it's like all of a sudden he's figured out the pattern. He gets it. He understands. I don't know, me trying to throw a little superpower stuff into this. Dominic, you came out with a word, and I want to do a topic of the week on this word. I've been talking about that literally for 18, 24 months because the word keeps coming up, but I don't know how to ask a question on it that's not leading, right? And you said curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, for me as a product manager, being curious means so many things, right? So you start first by learning, right, and listening, and I don't know, asking the right questions, challenging status quo. I mean, it's always being upfront and exploring new ideas. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. It's being curious.
I mean, in everything, right? Always asking questions, because I'm thinking of, actually, I'm thinking of something that Paul Hatala said in the poll question, but he talked about, we were talking about empathy, and he said, if I had said specifically including stakeholders, but I think there's curiosity not in the not just in the market, but also in your stakeholders and understanding,
Absolutely. I mean, it's internal, external stakeholders. Absolutely. I mean, it's all across, right? Because otherwise, I mean, it's a package. It's an ecosystem, right? Of what? Oh, Steve, you have the hands up. Go ahead.
I'll get to him if you finished your thought. Or Dom, do you want to take over and now facilitate?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, all I was going to say was, I wanted to agree very much with, curiosity, but not just stakeholders. One of our friends was recently working with a product marketing team who were putting out a monthly email with a less than 1% open rate. And they had been doing so for years. And they never had a little bit of curiosity of, well, is that a good number? Is that a bad number? And, it is a bad number. And what would we do differently? And it was almost like they were saying, well, we've checked off the box. We're supposed to do a newsletter every month. Check, with no curiosity as to whether they were reaching the people they needed to reach. So it's curiosity about all the things that May said, all the things that Dominic said. I'm very much a believer in curiosity as a superpower.
Can I ask a question? Then should we put curiosity at the center of the Quartz Open framework instead of learn?
Yeah, I like that.
Or
it won't fit. It's too long.
Yeah, it is too long. Learn with curiosity. It's part of the description we do for it. But I think that goes to it, right? It's the curiosity that gets us to keep learning, to continue to do that learning.
Exactly.
Where we can go. Dom, any last thoughts on curiosity before Steve cuts you off again?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
All right.
Wait, did this turn into a roast when I was not looking?
Steve, whenever I can turn it into a roast, I always turn it into a roast.
Gotcha.
So, Jason, Dom came in with one of my favorite ones, curiosity. Then you came in with holistic product thinking. It just, I think that's it. This is one of those, I love it because sometimes we're the ones who have to connect the dot. Maybe this goes back to the systems thinking that May was talking about. Talk to me more about your thoughts on holistic product thinking and why it's your superpower.
Sure, I've had the ability to be down in the weeds creating user stories as a product owner and doing a feature factory piece. But recently I had the ability to hang out with my fun-loving sales and marketing people, and legal and accounting and accounts receivable. So it's interesting on the business side of products that you get to learn a lot about what the ecosystem of stakeholders and how they think about product and what their inputs and processes and outputs are as they deal with the product components. And so I would say my superpower specifically is because of my the roles I've had on the business side of product management. That was just on the business side of product management, and of course on the technical and delivery side of product management. I can now create those link between those two chasms, if you will, and be able to talk the talk again with other stakeholders. And yeah, so that's my superpower, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And it's so important that, as the more senior you get in product, as you're doing more product strategy stuff, because when you're in my head, I'm looking at times where I had to build a business case for a product, a new product, something. I actually had an understanding across the whole value chain, right? Where everything was, what needed to get done. And I could frame that story and I could, know who to engage with on what and that type of stuff. So I that's why it resonated with me, because I think that it really, I saw it in myself. So maybe I'm being narcissistic.
Well, I think also it helps your ability to influence.
Yeah.
Which is a critical component of powerful product management, is being able to influence stakeholders. And I think if you don't have that understanding of where they are and how they need to look at your product and what they need to deliver in their KPIs that was mentioned, then that may be difficult, because then you're just talking you're talking into a wall. So that empathy of those other groups is important.
No, I completely and totally get that. And I think that there's almost a tie with the curiosity Don was talking about, because
Absolutely.
Having curiosity in each of those other functions, understanding what they do and what's important to them, helps you do a better job as you do this holistic product thinking. So awesome. Cory, finding the essence of customer value for your product and understanding the system delivery and how to change it. Talk to me about your superpowers.
I mean, I hate saying this is my superpower. I like other people saying you're really good at X, and that's where I pulled that from, which was the products that I work on, the ideas, the problems, those things. Is there's 100 different things we could do. What are the most simple versions of that we could try out to see if it fits? So finding that core loop of your product, finding that core loop of your customer's problem, and how your product fits into that, and what you could do to build on that. I think that's where I come in and like to play with that. So not only do I like to do it, but apparently I have good results doing that too from others.
Yeah.
And then also there's this big ball of mud to have that small change to get out to the customer. How can we improve that? So yes, there's other groups and other companies and peoples and things we have to work with. How do we actually cut through all the BS and the red tape and the 6-month release process cycles to go through? How can we deliver this small change and see if it fixes a customer's problem today?
Yeah, I completely, I like that. And I love the customer value portion of it, because I think that, and I'm going to get back and I'm going to ask Steve a question. So Steve, start thinking about this. If we could build a product management superhero with 3 superpowers, I want you to start thinking about what superpowers we've been talking about you think you would put in your superhero. See, I'm trying to lean into the whole sci-fi, thing, Steve, and this would be fun for you. So start thinking about that. But customer value, I think understanding that's one of the key things, and understanding business value as well, and the sort of the trade-offs between that. I think that would be one that I like a lot. Eva, God, I loved your superpower. Partly because it defines you. I really believe your resilience is one of your defining features. But I think that, especially, as you're building your career, you go through so much as a junior person that if you don't have resilience, how can you make it to the other side?
Yeah, I think even before becoming a product manager, I was always really good at having customer empathy because of my resilience. I was always able to calm a very irate customer down because I could put myself in their shoes and be like, oh God, they're under so much pressure, So yeah, I do think in a whole, just being resilient through the way I was raised to the way I am now, being extremely, independent. I think it's really important as a product manager because there's going to be days that you're beat down. There's going to be days that you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And you need that resilience to keep going in your career, to be able to log in another day if you're remote like I am. So yeah.
It really resonated with me because, we talked about burnout earlier this year. We talked about a lot of the challenges that product managers face. And sometimes if you don't have that resilience, you're not going to succeed. You can't make it through. So I thought that was, I love it. Calvin, team building, so we've talked about curiosity. We've talked about needing to understand the processes. Talk to me about your superpower of team building. You're on mute, Calvin.
I just put in the chat a diagram that I refer to frequently. And I mean, that's what's, I feel like I won't speak for all of you, but that's what I feel like I deal with in working cross-functionally with other departments who have other needs, see the business in their own unique way, and bringing those teams together to move efforts forward is where
for those who may be watching or listening and don't have the chat here, it's the elephant picture with many different people touching the elephant in different places, all giving a different description of what it is. So
yes, it is the parable of these 6 blind men and the elephant. If you want to Google that, Google is your friend.
But so you're the one who helps bring the team together to see the forest for the trees. I'll go back to that line, or the elephant for the components of the elephant.
Yeah, also known as the puppet master.
You're the puppet master?
I
thought the puppet master was actually a villain. In Heroes, there was a guy who was a puppet master. I'm sorry.
It depends on your perspective. Who's the villain?
That's true.
We can be heroes.
Just for one day.
Just for one day.
Just for one day. Yes, we can. All right, Pamela, you've been listening to the people's superpowers they put in the community this week. What's your superpower?
So
or what are your superpowers? I don't want to.
Maybe I don't have any. Maybe I don't have any. I
humility.
Guess when I first started thinking about this, I had an image of balancing on one of those balance balls or the balance boards, right? And so then I actually came up with 3 pieces of it. So maybe I'm answering for Steve. I don't know, which is the ability to focus on outcomes versus output, the ability to frame, which I think, Calvin, you addressed with your elephant picture, which is basically you're the person saying we have an elephant. Okay. Okay. And then the last bit, I think, is living with uncertainty.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of live in curiosity and move forward regardless. Right. And that's
interesting.
It's scary. I think.
It is. And now I'm like in my head going, God, resilience and curiosity are actually tied together as well, because part of how I was resilient was my curiosity to help me keep going and going there. So
yeah. And if you combine it with framing, then you have kind of your goal out there and you have the guidelines by which you are progressing towards that goal, but you don't have to have certainty within those guidelines. You can kind of still move, right?
I like that. You built you're a pretty good superpower person there, huh?
I don't know.
Dom, what about packaging discussion, then perspective? Talk to me about.
When I think and I hear all these superpowers, right? At the end of the day, it gives you this overarching perspective on everything, right? And I think, maybe that's something that can round up some of those discussions, right? And really, because we're here to help connect all these dots, right? I mean, it's very complex. Like Pamela was saying, it's a lot of uncertainties, right? And and we as product managers, really, we're trying to utilize those creative mindsets to get people together through influencing and whatnot. So perspective maybe is something that could round up a little bit the discussion.
Paul Hatalat actually put that in. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the poll. Any last thoughts on your superpowers you see in product management before I let Steve take the floor and introduce us to his product management superhero? Any last thoughts? All right, Steve, the floor is yours. Sort of in an Stark Industries type of way, you're now able to put together these superpowers.
There we go. Well, I think the actual perfect superhero representative of product management is Wonder Woman. She's got the lasso of truth and all the nonsense that people throw her way, she can knock off with those bracelets of hers. So when salespeople say stupid shit, she's able to go, bang, bang, and she doesn't die. Yeah, I guess it's just that. I mean, Wonder Woman's the perfect person. She's got the bracelet things and the lasso things, and she can, run and jump and do other things. But I think she's the perfect product management superhero.
And the strength to carry the team.
And the strength to carry the team. There you. And the invisible airplane. But I don't know how that does anything with product management.
She moves from place to place in incognito, in cloak.
Yeah. Well, that being said, Steve, are we going down the wrong path? We talk about too often products get released only due to heroic efforts. And now we're saying, it takes a superhero to do it. Maybe I went the wrong way with this.
Perhaps so. But, if we're going down the path of superhero, that's where I ended up. But, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about are, at least powers, if not superpowers, prioritization, perspective, the ability to see what is, not what we want to see. I mean, a lot of those that we've talked about make for a really strong product manager.
I love it. And Dom, I was joking, although not joking, when I said to Pamela, humility, right? But I think maybe being humble, having some humility is something that could be a product management superpower, because we do have to get a team to work together. We can't make it about us. I think maybe, Steve, the line is we have superpowers, but we don't want to be superheroes. It's not all about us.
But it's like the Foo Fighters song, "There Goes My Hero, He's Ordinary."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you're too, so that's where the uncertainty comes in. If you remain in the state of uncertainty, you allow people to do it, right? Then that's also part of being humble, right? You're open to other people participating. Because the last thing you want is they're going to follow you off a cliff. You want people to challenge you, right? Within reason. So
yeah.
So it's always like this Goldilocks thing, right? You want people to participate and follow at the same time. So it's like, which one am I going to hit today? Which one do I need to hit right now with this person?
No, I get it. And we're putting a pretty good playlist together with Foo Fighters and David Bowie. I guess we can bring in every hero song or superpower song we can think about if we can reference them moving forward. So on Wednesday, building from the answers, we asked the question, what is the most undervalued product management superpower? So we talk about a lot of things. Which one is most undervalued by product management, by the organization, whomever? And the options were curiosity and continuous learning, analysis, identifying the threads and themes, empathy, putting yourself in the customer situation, perspective, bringing it all together holistically, and then other it depends. And Dom, you voted for other it depends. You said storytelling there, but then you just came back after all the conversation and talked about perspective.
I was trying to, round it up again. I mean, so unfortunately, storytelling was not on the list, and I just wanted to click on other. Just
You always do.
Another, a superpower. But being a good storyteller, right? We tend to have difficult decision to make by saying no, right? And most of the time, I don't like to say no. I'd like the organization to actually acknowledge that, hey, we're not going to move forward with ABC, right? So again, it's a reverse. We're trying to influence, stakeholders to help understand through our storytelling, right, what the right decision should be, instead of kind of command and control, hey, and maybe build walls, right? So I always like to be open and be curious and have people actually challenge me. Is like, okay, why is it not, the right way? What, and through the storytelling and, explaining what customer pain points are and going through, a strategy, have the organization actually realize, okay, this is not the right way to go and move forward. And, when we have that and teams of product management, product managers, I tend to, kind of turn around and say, well, it's a internal superpower of an organization, not the, superhero style. That's why.
I get it. And actually, you had me thinking, I have never done it on purpose, but often people are able to put together these things into one super answer. And it's like, if you have curiosity with empathy and you do the analysis and gain that perspective, that's all the foundation to tell the story you need. And the storytelling is almost like, how do you then communicate this? So I like that. I like where you went with that. I'm going to go to empathy came in third place at 17%, but it's overrepresented on our panel today. Cory, Calvin, and Eva all went with empathy. I'm going to start with Eva, and then Calvin, and then Cory. Talk to me about empathy. I mean, it ties to what you were talking about with persistence or resilience, and you talked about resilience with empathy. So talk to me about empathy for you.
Yeah, I think if you can't put yourself in your customer situation, then you're not going to be able to build a product that's accessible for them. I think that a problem that most product managers have is they don't talk to enough customers. And when I was in support, that's all I did. Like the minute I woke up to the minute I left work, that's all I did was talk to customers. And I know I need to get better at that as a product manager. But I think, being able to be in those conversations, like seeing what support cases they're opening, joining those calls, seeing what they're, kind of mad about or frustrated about with your application or your platform or whatever you use, definitely is undervalued, I think, in the world of product management, because some product managers have this, stance that I know what my customer wants, where you don't really know what your customer wants until you can join those calls and have empathy for your client.
I love it. Again, all of these are things that I had in my head. We had the answers. And so I definitely see it. Empathy was probably my second choice, but I can definitely see it. Calvin, for you.
Yes to everything that Eva said. And we've had this conversation in previous calls where we've talked about, we've gone down the rabbit hole of Jira and Jira jockeys and crap like that. And that's not, it's addressing tasks, but it's really not getting out and talking to customers and understanding what their problems are, solving those. And it seems to me that oftentimes and I say even in my own experience, not getting out in front of customers often enough to understand what their needs are and the problems that we're trying to solve. So that's why I chose putting yourself in the customer situation. In the customer situation, I don't know that overall product managers are all talking to customers enough.
So
Now,
one
is
of
it-
your
is there-
superpowers is customer vision.
Steve's now giving names to them.
Ah,
As opposed to X-ray vision, customer vision.
I was wondering where you're going with that, Steve.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Calvin, is there a recency bias because you just spent a week and a half at 2 conferences talking to customers?
No,
Okay.
no. I've always been a proponent of being out talking to customers, and maybe part of my bias is because as a product manager, I don't come from a technical perspective. So
You need to lean into the market side.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, I do where others lean into Jira, Agile.
Yeah. Cory, you also went with empathy. You said most places don't care if the customers love their product.
Calvin, please, Jira is not agile. Don't do that.
Well,
You're making me shake, man. I just don't do that. Anyway, when I looked at this question, Grant, the thing that was in the back of my mind was for who undervalues product management superpowers. And to me, it's two groups of people, the product managers themselves and the companies that employ us. And in that regard, I think companies, the vast majority of companies I've worked for or seen or heard people talk about, do not care about their customers, in the sense that they don't want to understand what their real problems are. They just want to get the sale, get the deal, get it out the door, go on the next one. Most product managers also undervalue understanding what their customer does because they're being driven by a date, a time, a scope, a schedule, a sale, or whatever. And they don't have time. They don't think they don't have time, or it's not important enough to take the time to learn, well, what would really solve their problem? And what do I need to understand about them? So that's why I said it's undervalued, because both the companies don't value it for their product managers. And sometimes a lot of the product managers don't see it as part of their job as well.
You just made a really good case there. So that was third place at 17%, 5% other, it depends with Dom's vote, which I did like the storytelling. And I would be interested to see if I could have put that in where it would have fallen. 5% for analysis, identifying the threads and themes. Steve, you're the lone representative on the call who voted for curiosity and continue learning. Probably should have been continuous learning. I did it.
I think curiosity is undervalued. Oh, here's one. I may have told this before, but my daughter was dating a product marketing manager who was not the slightest bit curious about his product. And she asked him a question once and he said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't use our product." And she said, "You're dead to me."
Literally
She broke it off. She broke it off because here was a product manager who had no curiosity about his product. And then she went and married a UX designer. So there's still happiness in the family.
Because he cares about his product.
He cares about his customers, yes,
yeah.
And his product.
So curiosity had 29% of the vote. In perspective, with 41% of the vote, came in at the highest. And May, Jason, and myself all voted for it on the call today. Pamela, you did not vote yet, or if you voted, it was.
Oh, I just voted, and I did perspective as well, because I think there's an alchemy to it. And I think you need all of it, and you need to decide when, like which card you're going to play when. Sometimes you play the curiosity card. If you have curiosity, but no analytics, if you have empathy, but no analytics, like until you kind of throw all the ingredients in, you don't have a cake. Right?
Yeah. You said in the chat, the trick is you may have multiple superpowers. It's choosing the one to manifest at a particular time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's sort of like Siler from Heroes, where you can now take everybody else's powers and put them all together. But I
What
don't want
did
to talk
you
about
do
how
to
we're
get
I'm
ready for this
thinking, I'm
episode?
thinking that I think I've stolen a few or copied a few superpowers over the years from people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I voted for perspective too, and I thought it was that too often we get stuck in the silos and it's not valued for what we can do to bring the whole picture together. Jason, you're next, then I'll go to May.
So I just think it's interesting with the perspective piece, because as product managers, we get called on all the time to do things like demos and read the website for the salespeople, and we get pushed into these other positions. But if you ask any of those people what product managers are for, it's to push out features.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's undervalued, because the company doesn't undervalue what we can provide, yet they're asking us to provide that, but they can't explain why they're asking us to be a part of those conversations. At the end of the day, if you talk to any of them, they're like, well, yeah, they just create features for the product. So maybe they just don't understand why they're bringing us in, but that's obviously our value, is that holistic approach, and we can be a part of all of that, providing those curious components, providing those empathy components in those conversations. So I just think that's interesting dynamic.
I love it. And I love how you pulled your holistic from your Monday answer into your answer describing your perspective vote. I like the full circle nature of that. May, what left is there to be said?
Lots, actually.
Of course.
I've been looking at a lot of job description, and I took the word valued quite literally, because that's what people get hired for and get paid for, right? So the words you see on job descriptions for product manager, often you see the word curiosity. You almost always see the word analysis. There is a rising percentage of them that says the word empathy. And you'd never see the word perspective. So I picked the word perspective because we don't get recognized for it. Like, how do you get recognized for bringing perspective to the table, aside from product success, which like never really gets attributed to product management? It gets attributed to sales half the time. So I think it's important to say that, yeah, like, where does our value get recognized? How do we get paid for it? How do we get hired for perspective? Because like, it is actually the most critical part of all of this, bringing it together, as everyone else said. So literally.
Maybe this is something we can take this conversation and look at these superpowers and actually help build a good job description, right? Because if we're missing things, right, there's stuff not in there. We do need to sort of have curiosity to make sure we're continually learning, both internally and externally. We do need to be able to do the analysis with that. We need to do it all with empathy, and bring perspective to it. I don't know, maybe there's a job we can do there. Any last thoughts on the poll before I move to the Friday question? All right. So Cory, in the chat, you had said earlier, maybe we would have changed the question. So this is the action, I think, where you're going. What product management superpower do you wish you had? And then I added the and why. And Eva, I'm going to start with you. What product management superpower do you wish you had, and why?
I think I wish I had more confidence, because most of the product managers on my team are ex-coders and developers, and I'm one of the only A, females, and B, people that have a technical background, but, support. Like, I'm not there to write hello world items out. So I think I just wish I had more confidence when I kind of compare myself to them, to be honest. I definitely have those thoughts in my head, like, what am I doing here? The imposter syndrome, like everybody has. And I'm re-listening to Lenny's podcast with Julie Zhu, and she just has amazing insight on that topic. So that's what I'm listening to currently to kind of get me out of this thought process.
I'm going through a program called Positive Intelligence, and it's all about understanding your judge and your saboteurs. And it looks like Pamela has done it. And it really has helped me so much, especially with my imposter syndrome, because what it teaches you to do, it trains you to identify when that starts coming in, and how do you change it from your saboteur track to your sage track. So I completely and totally get that. You know, even at this stage in my career, I go through it as well. And, you know, suggest, you know, check it out. I'll send you a link because I think that overcoming that imposter syndrome is one of the hardest things I still deal with. And I completely love this, the idea of confidence as a superpower. Not overconfidence, but confidence. So I love it. Dom.
Summarizing. Being able to put everything together in a very succinct manner.
Yeah,
that's my challenge.
Boy, I could use that too. Ask Steve. I'll write 1,200 words and Steve will get it to 800. So being succinct, and that ties to your storytelling as well, because you need to be very succinct with your, I love that. That's awesome. Calvin.
Technical skills.
Technical skills. You wish you had more technical skills.
Yeah, I mean, because I lean more toward the strategic and more toward customer discovery. And I don't come from a background of, you know, of coding or the IT heavy lifting. So that's a skill that I wish that I had,
So you could have those more intimate conversations with the team around the technical type stuff.
Yeah, and also it seems like a lot of the product management positions I see are more technical oriented and less, you know, less strategic.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'd use a couple of words, you know, buzzwords, but I know Cory would cringe. So,
Pamela.
I think I try and understand the other person's point of view so often that sometimes I give them, it takes me a while to kind of say no and mean it and get people to move. So I've kind of evolved this technique of saying yes, sort of, and then keeping it going and slowly shifting them towards my perspective. But I don't sit there and I don't do a dogmatic no.
Yeah.
I wish I had more guts sometimes to do it. I don't know.
One of my saboteurs was avoidance, so I try to avoid it as well. So I get that.
Yeah.
Completely.
I think I eventually get there. I just have to, you know, like I said, it's a super tanker move, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then when they arrive, I think ultimately it's better because they arrive at that point by themselves, right?
You're leading the horse to water and they're drinking.
Yeah. But it's slower, as opposed to just saying, no, not doing that.
But there's times where you want it to be their decision. There's times where you want them to have ownership in that.
I want them to have ownership. And I have learned painfully so that if you don't have other people having ownership, then you're dragging them along the whole time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I get it. Cory, besides juggling.
God, you guys are boring. I want real superpowers. I want to time travel. I want to go back to when decisions were made and go, don't do that. That's going to turn out bad in 2 years. Don't do that. I want to go back. I want to read customers' minds. I want to know what they're not telling me. I want to know why the executive really wants to do that. I want to do mind control. It's like, no. I'm telling you, you can't do that. And you can't do that. I want to be invisible. I want to sit in with our customers in these meetings that people won't let me sit into.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
I want to warp reality to meet my needs, right? I want to see the future. I want to power up my teammates. I want to make them learn something. I want to do all the superpowers.
That's a little greedy.
Actually,
Cory. Why don't you just pick one?
Yeah.
Prioritize your superpower needs. Maybe that should be your first superpower.
Yes, I could see the movie poster now. The superhero who prioritizes all the other things.
Actually, I let Eva put into the chat fly and think about going back to visiting customers and empathy. If you could fly, how easy, you don't have to go through
Teleport.
TSA.
No, you don't want to fly. You
Yeah.
want to teleport. Think of all the bugs you'd hit. No.
Well, but is teleporting a skill or is that a technology used in the movie? I mean,
No, you don't go there.
okay, I won't. Jason.
So ready for that rabbit hole. I was going to jump in on that one too. So mine would be super sight, a little bit like Cory. It's a little more exciting, like Cory was begging for. So super sight, I want to see what the market trends are going to be to influence my product before they're coming, so I can be, ahead of the curve competitively.
Oh, so the interesting thing is the better job you do at market research, the better you get at seeing around corners, as Rita McGrath would say. I haven't mentioned Roger Martin or Peter Drucker today, so at least I'm getting Rita McGrath in there.
I think we're on to the Dune prescience term. I think we're to drag us back to the sci-fi motif.
Yes, prescience. May.
I would like the ability to compel people to tell the truth, but also they have to say it, right? Like, so tell actually what they're thinking, what they know, what they don't know. And then that way, you don't get the, this is absolutely going to make us $1 million. It's more, there is a 20% chance that this might make us $1 million. And then that way, you would be able to make better decisions overall. Like imagine if all of your devs are telling you this is would have to tell you that this is a stupid idea. Or like, this is a great idea, I really like it, but I don't like this little piece. Maybe we can do this better. Like how much time would we save if people were just honest with what they really thought?
So you actually like Steve's idea of Wonder Woman's lasso of truth?
I mean,
you just don't want to put a lasso
it's
around
not
them.
really I guess it also compels you to talk, but I would prefer, I feel like it would be a HR violation with the lasso. So
True. I can see that. Steve.
Well, I like all of these, certainly having the force and compelling weaker minds to tell the truth or to change their minds. I wish, but I think I want to join Jason in having vision
Foresight.
of the future.
these are not the features you're looking for.
Right.
Okay, I can see that. I want to go back to, Eva, Dom, Pamela, and Calvin. Now that Cory changed the game and is throwing real superhero superpowers in, is there something that you would have wanted to say otherwise, Eva?
Honestly, the fountain of youth, because my biggest regret is starting in product in my 40s. I would have loved to have done this 20 years ago, and just imagine where I am today.
I love that. That's great. Dom?
I mean, my superpower would be to be able to get in everybody's mind.
Yeah, that's where I was. I was in the, read people's minds. At a minimum, internally, it might be unethical doing that with the customers, although, maybe that's the subtext. Maybe that's the subtext we need when we're observing them and talking with them. That helps get there. But that was the superpower I was thinking about. Calvin?
I was thinking more courage. Just thinking back to a position I had 15 years ago where I should have stepped in and said, you know what, we need to be doing X, and you guys don't know, you executives need to be thinking about this and not pissing away money on this other crap that we're doing. So
like Hawkeye, you might not have a superpower, but you've got the courage to go into it with your bow and arrow. And
yeah.
I don't know. I just saw that Jeremy Renner was being interviewed by somebody, so it made me think. Pamela, is there a superpower? A superhero superpower?
I think there's the regret. I wish, kind of like Eva's, I wish I knew then what I know now. right? Like the
Sort
time
of aligns
travel
with
thing.
Corey's first thing, right? Going back and
Going
looking at
back and
decisions.
being able, like, if I could redo some of the decisions that I made 20, 30 years ago, my life would be substantially different. On the other hand, I guess personally, I'm reasonably happy. So maybe I don't.
Well, we get into the whole
You also have
time
to
travel
give.
thing.
You have to give something
Yeah.
up, right? If you get that. So
Yeah.
so I guess if I really had to choose, then I think I would choose Jason, being able to see the future in a way. Yeah. Predict what's going to happen accurately. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. With that said, time for our key takeaways. And a couple of you have not been on. We've changed lightning round to key takeaways. So, what's your biggest learning or takeaway from this conversation? I'm going to start with Jason.
My biggest takeaway is that we have, I think that we have a lot that we want to be able to do. I think probably we are doing our best, and I think it's probably acknowledged. I also think that if somebody else wanted us to have superpowers, they may be different than the product superpowers that we would like to have. And that'd be an interesting analysis as well.
Oh, so what other people think we should have versus what we think we should have. I like that. Dom.
Still thinking.
Okay. Calvin.
I think for me, it's just interesting to hear other people's viewpoints, where there's, where their strengths are, where they feel they have weaknesses, and hearing that compared to mine. So it's just interesting.
Awesome. Eva.
I think hearing that all product managers, even the ones on this call that have been in the craft for so many years, wish that they had superpowers. I think that gives me promise, because I think no matter what, we're not going to be perfect, obviously. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Cory.
Something, this is not a good thought, by the way, but how invested we are at trying to reduce risk. How much we would use these superpowers to eliminate the possibility of a bad event occurring, or use it for whatever. But that's kind of what I'm thinking, is everything seems to come down to risk and focus on that.
Product management is risk management.
Yeah.
Dom, you ready?
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about it is like, why do we need all these superpowers, right? I mean, we're all here around the table talking about superpowers, and I was just, to me, it's amazing that we have hard time to trust other functions, other stakeholders, right? I mean, we want to see through, we want to better understand, we want to get accurate data. Why can't we get that, right? I mean, it's just,
why do we need these? But it's the situation we're in, the challenge. Yeah, that's great perspective. The challenges we're facing, we feel like we need these. Wow. Thank you, Pamela.
I love these sessions because I have my perspective, and what I realize is, depending on your situation, you can have different needs, right? And so, it as a product manager, it rebalances, sort of my weighting on different abilities and skills and issues. So that's my takeaway from this conversation.
That's great. May?
It's interesting how this kind of brought to light a lot of the things that we individually struggle with, but it's not just us, right? It's us, it's our teams, it's almost every single product manager we ever talk to. And framing the conversation differently in terms of what is your superpower and what would you like your superpower to be, opens us up for a vulnerable conversation, which is often quite hard to have. I mean, most of us have never met, right? So it's fascinating how we can dig a little deeper into how do we want to work better together.
Wow. I wish I had planned the vulnerability aspect of that, but I'm glad it worked. Steve.
I think this is insightful for coaching younger product managers or newer product managers. The things that we're talking about kind of express some areas of our past frustration, you know, dealing with deal of the day, or dealing with the executive who read an airline magazine and now has a whole new pivot planned. And we're looking for these, you know, techniques to deal with dysfunction. And yet what we've talked about is the need for transparency and curiosity and confidence. And I think these are all powers, not superpowers, but powers that we can instill in younger people, in younger product managers.
And Steve, that leads me, and this is why with lightning round, I couldn't say, oh my God, he stole my answer. But with this one, I could just build on that. Where I was going to go is all these, well, outside the ones that Cory started introducing with the actually real superhero superpowers, all the things we talked about are things that you can change in yourself. You can build in yourself. You can grow these powers. And it's not like you have to have some magic serum or whatever, or get bit by a radioactive spider, right? These are all things we can learn and grow and improve. And I think that was the biggest takeaway for me. So, wow, great conversation.
You know, one more takeaway that I got was we all know way too much about superheroes and science fiction.
Actually, not enough. The amount of times that sci-fi was referenced when you're talking about fantasy, I would like to point out that this is
good point.
Okay, I think we're splitting hairs here.
Nerd alert.
Isn't sci-fi and fantasy a category?
They're related, but there are entire Twitter threads on the difference between sci-fi and fantasy.
Correct.
Okay.
If you really have a lot of time to waste.
All right. Well, next week we're going to talk about the product management triad: product strategy, technical product management, product marketing, and the different roles of product management. So we'll look forward to that conversation last week. Wow, what a great conversation. I want to thank the panel: Jason, Calvin, Eva, Cory, Dom, Pamela, May, my partner and friend Steve. We have these great conversations every week. I learn, I grow every week. And it's a pretty simple thing. On Monday, we put the question in the community. On Wednesday, we have the poll. And on Fridays, we have these amazing conversations and discussions that go in many different ways. And I just love them every week. So thanks everybody for a great conversation. We'll see you guys next week in the community. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.